Hello, my freshmen. I miss you guys. I had fun seeing some of you yesterday on Zoom. If you want to visit again next Tuesday at 11, that'd be great. Just make sure that we are focused in talking about English during that time, as I'm super busy trying to do everything from home and it's not always easy. Anyway, I miss you guys. I just wanted to talk a little bit today about chapter 21 of Cry the Beloved Country. And one of my favorite parts about the book is that despite the hatred, despite the native Africans living under the Europeans' rule, the white man's rule in Africa, that there is a story of love and devotion and forgiveness in this book. If you notice too, as you're reading the book, it's very lyrical. It almost sounds like a song or a psalm, maybe. For example, there's lots of biblical imagery, of course, with the names and the actions, especially from Kumalo. However, the way that Alan Paton has written the story, the gentleness, it sounds like it can come straight from the Bible. It's one of my favorite things about the book. All right, so jumping into chapter 21, it is Arthur Jarvis's funeral. And James Jarvis, if we look at the beginning of chapter 21, and it says, "And the bishop's voice rose when he spoke of South Africa, and he spoke in a language of beauty. And Jarvis listened for a while without pain, under the spell of the words." Here, James Jarvis, a white man, doing his own thing for his whole life, very wealthy and well-to-do, but has now lost his son. And he's trying to understand what is going on, what's happening in Africa. Why was his son so dedicated to the natives, and especially given the fact that his son was killed by a native? And the bishop said that here had been a life devoted to South Africa, of intelligence and courage, of love that cast out fear, so that the pride welled up in the heart, pride in the stranger who had been his son. So even now, Jarvis is recognizing the fact that, although he's loved his son his whole life and is proud of his son, he doesn't really know him. But through the bishop's words, that pride in the stranger who had been his son, now James Jarvis wants to know, why is this South African, why is this bishop talking so highly about his son? On the next page, James Jarvis says, the black people also, it was the first time he'd ever shaken hands with the black people. So at the funeral for Arthur Jarvis, James is marveled. He's marveled by the love and the outpouring of love by both the Africans, the native Africans, and of course by Arthur's friends. And he's shocked, and he's recognizing the fact, I've lived in this country my majority, maybe if not all of my life, and here I have never shaken hands with the people who make up the majority of the country. And again, it's given him some insight. What's going on? Why did my son care so much? Looking at the bottom here, after the funeral, he's sitting with the Harrisons. And what's touching to me about this passage, well, let me first read it to you. And I want you to think about what's going on here. How would you feel? We'll start up here. They're still waiting for the boy to recover. They have hopes that he recognized one of them. So remember when Absalom and his cousins and friend went into Arthur Jarvis's house, they had attacked had attacked the man working in the kitchen. Okay, and so they are addressing, Harrison and James Jarvis are addressing, is this guy going to be okay? Did he see anything? So they're still waiting for the boy to recover. They have hopes that he recognized one of them. Otherwise, they say it will be very difficult. The whole thing was over so quickly. They hope too that someone may have seen them getting away. They think they were frightened and excited and wouldn't have walked away normally. And then Harrison says, I hope to God they get them and string them all up. Pardon me, Jarvis. James Jarvis says, I know exactly what you mean. And Harrison says, we're not safe, Jarvis. I don't even know that stringing them up will make us safe. Sometimes I think it's got beyond us. I know what you mean. But myself, perhaps it's too soon to think about it. Here's poor James Jarvis. He just lost his son. He just shook hands with the natives, and now his friends, who mean well, are saying, we want to get this guy. We want to get these guys who killed your son. And of course, we can identify with that. Anybody whose child was murdered wants the murderer to get into trouble. But James is pausing. He's pausing, and he says, perhaps it's too soon to think about it. He wants to think. He wants to understand. And here, the irony is James Jarvis lost his son to violence. Stephen Khumalo is about to lose his son because of the violence. So we have these two fathers who love their child, who love their children, who love their sons. And the bigger question maybe that's going on in their minds is why? Why are these things happening? Why did James Jarvis never shake a black man's hand in all the years he's lived in a country predominantly black? James is starting to pause. He's starting to think. And if he represents the whites in general in Africa during this time, maybe he's saying, wait, we need to stop and think before we do something so rash as to string them all up. And notice the hateful language there, or the ignorance. Maybe it's more ignorance than hate, or just fear. Remember, in the book, Khumalo talks about fear. And so Harrison goes on, he gets off on a tangent, and he says, and these sanitary lanes that run behind the houses, we've urged them to close the damn things up now that we have proper sewage. They're dark and dangerous, and these damned loafers use them as hideouts. God knows what's coming to the country. I don't. I'm not a nigger hater, Jarvis. I try to give them a square deal, decent wages, and a clean room, and reasonable time off. Our servants stay with us for years, but the natives as a whole are getting out of hand. They've even started trade unions. Did you know that? Again, Harrison maybe is more ignorant than anything. If he's saying that he's not a hater, then why does he use this word that I don't like to say? Okay, why is he saying these hateful things if he doesn't hate? Is it ignorance? Is it stereotyping? Think about in our own country. Who are the people that we shun? Who are the people that we blame for things going wrong in our country? How are they like the native Africans? Take a moment, just pause. And what is ironic? I try to give them a square deal, decent wages, and a clean room, and a reasonable time off. It's like they're trying to justify, perhaps. Maybe Harrison's trying to justify his hatred or his intolerance and not seeing the reality or the irony that they are the minorities living in this native Africa. In the meantime, James Jarvis, again, is trying to figure out his son. Who is my son? Who is my son? And he finds the manuscript that Arthur was writing on native crime right before he passed away, right before he got killed. His son was writing a book on the native crime in Africa and trying to ascertain as to why that crime existed. So stop for a moment and think, why does crime exist? Why, maybe even now, you think about what's going on in our world today. What kinds of crimes might happen because of the shutdown, the lockdown, having to sit in place? What kind of crimes are happening, because people want toilet paper, for example? Do good people sometimes get forced into crime? I'm going to pause right here for right now. And I'd just like for you to think about what I've talked to you about so far. Talk to you about the crime. And I will post an assignment up on to Canvas. And we'll pick up with the rest of chapter 21 tomorrow. But I'd like to slow down a little bit and look at these last few chapters closely. All right, I hope you guys have a good day. Miss you, love you.